Pensado's Place is brought to you by
Talk about Empire State of Mind. Our guest not only has seen it all, he helped create it. We've got a brand new promotion from Vintage King. We've got a brand new ITL. David, you ready to go?
I am ready, my friend.
Folks, you're at the place. It's Pensado's Place.
And I'm always happy when I get to talk to another engineer, when that engineer is somebody that I admire and have admired for a long time. And several of his mixes sit on the guest of honor slide in my computer. That's it's
Mine too.
Very revered space.
Not just yours or mine, like the whole world. This is.
But anyway, it's gonna be a fun, great show. How's your week so far, Herb?
Pretty good. It's tied inextricably to yours. So how was your week? It will tell you how my week was.
My week was better than yours because I'm getting emails from you at midnight, 2, 4, 6.
That's nothing new.
No, it's great because those are the times I get up and pee every night, so it works out pretty good. Or maybe you're waking me up.
Well, they've been good emails. They've been a series of good emails, correct?
Yeah, you know what? We're so blessed to have the audience we have. Our guys are just great.
Yeah, they really have been.
And it seems like this week we got some emails that just touched our hearts. More we always do, but this week seemed like there was like a million of them.
Yeah, there were, and we want to thank you guys for those emails. It is a humbling extra part of this crazy experiment that is working so well that you're touched so much, which touches us, which keeps us going. So you have to know that those are very impactful for us. We've got such great stuff. Should we get on with it?
Do it.
So guys, as usual, great to be with you. As always, today's show is coming to you from the hallowed halls of the Art Institute of California, Los Angeles.
Yes.
We are broadcasting from our beautiful HD studio. HD, of course, is the acronym for...
I got nothing.
You got nothing? Not even Herb and Dave, not Howdy
Okay.
Doody, not...
I was trying to think of something like something Herb with an adverb to make it all you, and I couldn't think. You know what? Let's do an HD contest. You guys send me your submissions for what HD stands for. Try to slant them to something cool about Herb, and
Herb
you'll win.
and Dave.
No.
And
Just
we'll
give me
use-
Herb.
Anyway, so here we go. We're off on another journey. A quick reminder that your likes and subscribes for us are really working.
Yeah.
Keep it up. You literally power the show. And all of us at Team Pensado really appreciate that. I'll tell you a quick aside. I had lunch on Tuesday with Will Thompson and Alex the Kid, and we're collaborating and talking about some different things. And Alex asked where Will thought the show would be. And the number that he threw out of subscribers by this time next year was sort of stunning.
You told me that number. I think
like-
he's on Wacky Tobacco.
Well, unfortunately, he doesn't do that. He's just on yoga.
Yeah, he's from San Francisco. He's not here. We can talk about
We
it.
can. But what he was saying is that the audience reaction to subscribing has been so robust
It has, yeah.
that it's powering the show. So we appreciate it so much.
Really.
A ton going on with our Vintage King family. Shout out to them. And let's check off the boxes. First off, Vintage King is offering you guys a 5% discount on all their demo deal gear. This will run from now through September 17th. So here's how you do it. Go to vintageking.com/Pensado's Place for the info. Your checkout code is Pensado, just like we did last couple weeks ago. Again, look below me, vintageking.com/Pensado. Checkout code is Pensado, which you then can get your 5% discount. So
Yeah, do that, guys. That really helps us out. Come on, do it.
and it helps VK out and it helps you guys out. So thanks VK for that. By the way, do you have a stump the VK guy question?
I'm not sure about this question because I don't know the answer, Herb.
Yeah,
I think I could make up a good answer,
well, that won't work.
which is what the Vintage King guys do anyway half the
Okay.
time.
All right.
So what's the difference between a delay and an echo?
Okay. We'll do that.
Guru's going to answer that and make me look bad. I know he is.
Okay, and then we'll put Guru's answer underneath us when we do that so they can see it. A quick programming note. As we've mentioned to you a couple times, we had the pleasure of going to Fairfax Recording at the behest of the Nero brothers who own Vintage King, who are also musicians. And Fairfax Recording used to be the historic and Sound City studio, where just incredible records were made. And Dave Grohl's documentary, which was I think Oscar nominated. It's certainly award winning.
You got to watch it.
You know, seminal records from Nine Inch Nails to Petty to Metallica and on were made in this studio. It's now owned by Kevin Agunas of Gautier and Lumineers fame, and he has kept one of the most pristine temples of recording.
Yeah, kudos
just
to him.
pure.
He spent a lot of money.
We got a chance to have a unique look at it. We're going to share it with you. So you'll really enjoy that. Let's see what else. Our avid friends are also coming to us with this at the end of September, right? So what we're going to do, guys, is we're going to do a deep dive on Pro Tools 11. We'll go into Dave's studio, we'll shoot it there, and we'll be able to show you technique and other kinds of things. We're going to gather some experts. So look for the information on that show. End of September is when we're going to do that, correct?
Yeah, I tell you what, I've been playing with Pro Tools 11 for a while. In fact, I'm up to 13 now, but I had to go back to 11 for this show. And 11 is amazing.
Really like it?
Well, I mean, I was doing a session and on 10, and I had like about 42% of my processor being used. I went to 11, same computer, same everything, with the same session. It dropped down to 2%.
Wow.
I mean, the way that it's a whole new engine. It's new, top to bottom.
So
it's not like some chrome and a couple of new rims. It's new.
They rebooted this thing completely.
It's really good.
So we'll show all that stuff to you and really drill down and get some experts for you. It should be good stuff. We got our great guests. I think enough of the homework. Dave, why don't you introduce our ITL?
Today's ITL is, I was, every once in a while, I say this in the ITL, but I'm going to repeat it. Every once in a while, I run across something in my work that I just want to share with you. And so this is another approach and look at kick drums. What's up? In the course of doing what I do for a living, I run across different situations that I feel are somewhat universal and can show us some things that we might want to look at, and some of you guys for the first time, some of you for the millionth time. So this isn't, what I'm going to show you today isn't the only way. It's just one way, and it's one way that I found to be useful in terms of quality of sound and time. Now, this kick drum came to me with a couple little issues, and I'm going to show you how I solved them. Now, first of all, look at this curve. I'm taking out 9 dB at 50, and I'm adding 12 dB at 75. Yeah, I said it. So check this out. Here's the kick drum without this. With one of the hardest things for me, among many, everything seems hard, and if it's not, I got a knack for making it hard. So one of the hardest things and one of the last things that my ear got accustomed to dealing with was frequencies below 100. And then what makes things even more difficult is when you've got a peak next to a valley. Think of the inverse of this. Now I had a peak here, and so I pulled that down, and I had a valley here. Now look here, I'm only 25 cycles apart. That's nothing. So if I start messing with this and I pull this peak down, now this valley here goes even down further. I've fixed part of it, ruined the other part. Okay, here's a valley here. If I go to EQ this up, the peak that exists here gets even worse. That's what's kind of interesting about this and fun, because these things are really hard to hear. So now we've got that sorted out. We've got that repaired. Now, I could add more, but once I smooth this out, my parallel chain is going to be happy, happy, happy. So I added a little bit more 80 here. Now, look at these settings. They tend to work really well. This attack is a good place to start. This release is a good place to start. This ratio is a good place to start. One of the things the digital domain does really well is compression, especially de-essing. And these settings, to me, are a good place to start if you want to kind of emulate a DBX 160 XT. They're not exact, and by the way, those settings on that particular unit, they change with the amount of, with your threshold, with the amount of program material that you're reducing. So they're moving all the time. These are going to be static. This is a good starting spot. And then once you run it through the compressor, you're going to lose a little bit of low end. So we're boosting the crap out of 100. Okay, guys, remember this. I'm at minus 7.8, okay? So now here's my kick drum sound. So I'm knocking off around 10. Seems like a lot, but we're making it back up with this. Now let's take it out. Now if depending on what type of music we're using, we might want to do this. Or we might want to do this. Okay? And then because I can, I decided to add a little bit of this kick drum that reminds me of a Stargate kick drum. I love their stuff, so let's check that out for the. So here again, you can use these concepts for snares. Now the same setting that we used on that compressor for the kick, the sidechain compressor that I said was like a 160 XT, start with those settings on a snare if you want to. It'll work just as good. The compressor that we were using on our sidechain, these settings might be a good place to start if you're working on a snare and you want to parallel that, knock off about 10 or whatever. The only thing on a snare, adjust this attack until the sidechain sound has the amount of attack you want. I tend to not do this separately. I tend to listen to the sidechain with the original sound as opposed to soloing the sidechain, because ultimately that's what's going to have to happen. It's going to sound good with that. And then instead of a Pultec after that compressor, I might actually put something in front of the compressor and then I try it in the back. I like API 550s. I like the various Neve emulators. I like the G series by Colin over McDSP. There's a lot of things that just give you the ability to do some broadband, kind of broad brush strokes with the snare. And then of course, got to have my Stephen Slate trigger sampling some of his samples. I love to take, by the way, a clearly, proudly sampled or created artificial sound with a kick drum or a snare and mix a little bit of a live, real sound in with it. Not sure why, just because we got the tools to do it. Okay, guys, hope you enjoyed that one.
So there's your weekly information on kick drums. Take that information, adjust your craft, and we should hear better kick drums coming from our audience soon, correct?
We better.
Absolutely. Let's get to the good stuff. We have, a year ago, I sort of, not very politely, ran through a convention and said, "Hey, you, come over here."
You didn't say, "Hey, you."
Well, I did it by motioning.
No wonder it took us a year.
We are happy to welcome to our desk a guy that we not only like a lot,
Yeah.
but we admire a lot.
Absolutely.
Young Guru is here, and we got a lot to go over, brother. Thank you.
appreciate it.
Oh wait, we have to do a three-way pound. So you do that, and then
good.
Dave does that. There we go. Before we get into some of the meat of the stuff, we share educational DNA, right?
Yes, absolutely.
And man, congratulations! You are an artist in residence at the USC, at the Thornton School of Music,
I'm
correct?
so proud and so happy and thankful
That's
that
huge.
this whole process has finally come to fruition, and I just can't wait to get started.
And it's not just that you're there and trading on your celebrity and expertise. You're actually developing curriculum
Yeah.
for 2013, 2014.
Yeah, we're developing the curriculum as well as me teaching. So it's a thing of where, in today's music business, you can't just make music.
Yeah.
And we have enough examples where throughout history where we have the education that now you can put out your own music, you can understand about points, you can understand publishing, you can have all these great resources through online. So it's trying to develop something where the musician steps out and has a greater understanding of what he's doing, and in essence, more control over your destiny.
No doubt about it. And my guess is, what a lot of people don't know about you is that you literally started teaching as a teen.
Oh yeah.
You were teaching African history as a teenager.
It's in
correct?
my DNA. All the women in my family are teachers.
Mine too.
I had a very privilege, I consider a privilege that I was raised by a lot of males. My father was always in the household, a lot of uncles. My father was a Kappa, so just like all of his brothers were the guys that raised me. So it was just always in my DNA to teach because I was taught. So, at an early age, just teaching African history was a huge thing to me. That was something that was natural in my environment, and then I just wanted to teach it to a bunch of people.
I call it the griot theory. We'll come back.
Absolutely.
We'll come back to that in a
Absolutely.
second. Dave, let's talk some music.
Man, I can't stop listening to Empire State of Mind. I don't know why.
Even all this
I
time
just don't
later.
know why.
Yeah.
Happens to be an okay song.
Did all right.
You know
Did
what?
all right.
I actually saw Alicia Keys. What was that City of Hope dinner I went to?
Yeah.
I think that's what it's called.
Yeah.
Incredible charity. And she performed that, her and a piano by herself, and I was blown away. It's a song.
Yeah, it's a song.
It's a real song.
It's a song. It's a great song. I give the writers did a great job when they wrote the song,
Yeah.
the first version. And what was even more intelligent was, I think, Jay's way of changing what the concept of originally the song was about coming to New York and making it in New York. It was that focus, which I identified with because, being from
did
Wilmington,
that.
Delaware, it's like, okay, I'm coming to New York, and so many millions of people have done that pilgrimage, right?
Precisely.
To New York to make it. What he did was change it to this New York anthem to describe the feel of the city, which at first I kind of questioned, because I'm like, okay, well, are we just making a very New York-centric record that people in LA won't listen to?
Right.
But it became so universal in terms of just what you're presented with in the city happens to be what you're presented with in any city if you get to the basis of the foundation of what the song is about. So I think that's what the universal appeal. It's the same way Frank Sinatra can have a New York
right.
song and people sing it everywhere. It's kind of our version of that song, the hip hop version.
And
of
was
that song.
compared to that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it really.
I mean, by no means are we saying that we're Frank Sinatra, but
no, but you are what you are, and it was pretty significant.
I went back and listened to, you've done 12 of the 13 Jay-Z records that have come out. So I thought it'd be kind of fun to go back and in chronological order, listen to two songs from the first one, two songs from the second, two songs from the third, all the way down the line. And man, it was kind of cool because that's the history of modern hip hop in those 13 records. Yeah. And this song, to me, Empire State of Mind, was kind of cool because it not forced you, but one of the things I noticed about your work is you match your skills to the song. You let the song kind of tell you what to do. And this is the most pop song of anything I heard in 13 albums.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it had to be, but yet it's hip hop.
Yeah, our genre started as an underground thing. So it was just like, and myself, my personal taste, I'm more of an underground guy. But I believe as a great engineer that's the purpose. I was always taught, don't get in the way of the song.
Exactly.
That was the big thing, from so many, you can use that in so many different places, but it's taking whatever the feel of the song is supposed to be and making that, enhancing that in some way. So if it's a and not just with hip hop, with any song, but if it's an underground like grimy hip hop song, then I'm going to be more concerned with making sure that certain things hit. But if you're presented with a big pop song, you should make that into a big pop song. And that's really what my focus or where I was trying to go with that song, because you realize how big the song could be.
And what people don't understand is oftentimes your personal motivation has to be put to the side.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
You got to service the product,
Absolutely.
understand what it is, and then go for it.
That's like, if you're a barber, you're known for the way that you cut hair, but your client is going to come in and say, I want my hair cut this way. So it's like you kind of try to match your personal taste with what your client wants or what you feel as though it dictates. I try to look at it like that. Like if I was to tailor make every record just the way that I want it, it necessarily wouldn't service the best thing for the record.
Yep.
I'm trying to make the record, I'm trying to make the artist the best artist that they can be, not who I think they should be.
However, though, what I think is interesting, and both you and Dave have this capacity, and most of the best do, is that you find a way to make sure your signature is in there, but it serves the product, which is why people come to you.
Can't help having yourself in it because it's
Yeah,
so
'cause it's
personal.
you.
Mixing is a very personal thing. That's why when we get rejected, it just it's like twisting the knife. Guru,
I find it's not that. Sometimes this is me with my A&R hat on.
Sure.
Well, there's a lot of producers, and I tell a lot of my students this, and a lot of young guys I come across, because you get that. They get discouraged, and they're like sitting in their rooms, and they make great music, and they know it's great.
Yeah.
And then they send it off, and it gets rejected.
Right.
And they kind of feel like, well, I know this is great. What am I doing wrong? It just may not fit the project that they're doing.
That's right.
And that's how I look at it when one of my mixes gets rejected. I haven't had a lot of that because of the clients that I've worked with, but then you do get that, and it's like, okay, well, then my style wasn't necessarily what they were going for aesthetically.
It's a question of fit.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Guru, when you hear Empire Now, now I know you well enough to know that you just sat down and tried to make a great record. You didn't overthink it. But when you hear it now, do you feel like you added a little pop to the hip hop or a little hip hop to the pop?
I think I added a little pop to the hip hop.
Okay.
I think it was a pop record that was constructed in a very hip hop way, but it was supposed to be a pop record from the beginning. Meaning this, it's constructed from a drum break, number one. There's samples in it, that where it's taking a very classic R&B record and taking just the beginning and flipping it and making it something else. That's very hip hop.
Yep.
But at the end of the day, what's beautiful about the career of someone like Jay-Z is he can start in one place and become this huge artist, so that now if you look at the demographic of who comes to his shows and all those type of things, it's across the board.
Across the board.
So you have to start growing as to who you are and what you're representing, but staying true to yourself. I think one of the greatest things for us was, or for myself personally, was in 2010, I believe, when it might have been 2011, where we opened up for U2 in Australia. And now for the first time, I have like 50-year-old white women walking up to me in a casino and was like, hey, I would have never listened to a hip hop album. I came here to see you too.
Right.
But you guys' show was so great in the beginning, I went out and bought your album.
How amazing
and
is
now I get it. And it's like, that's exactly why we're here.
Absolutely.
To win over new fans, to expose what we're doing to an audience that has never heard it, and then maybe now you get a greater understanding of why we do what we do.
And it's also why your seat is so fascinating. To sit there for a decade, and I'm sure you get that a lot. To me, it's not so much about Jay-Z, which is obviously an incredible guy, but the fact that as keeper of that sound, as delineator of that growth, and you and him trusting you so much, the stakes are so much higher than people really understand, right? And you can't let that pressure get to you, but you have to constantly evolve. You can't sit and stay. You got to grow.
I tell people this all the time. The normal music career is like 4 or 5 years.
That's it.
That's great, right? And what happens is you come in and you're the new guy and everybody's excited about you. It's like, seeing a new girl for the first time. And it's like so exciting. But then next year, you have to do it again. And there's going to be a new person.
That's right.
And then you have to do it again.
That's right.
And again, and again, and again. And you have to keep reinventing yourself.
That's
I think the key to that is just the honesty and the truth. If you come from a place of truth and honesty and let people know where you are in your life, be it good or bad. You're good, the positive things you did. And I don't want to say like you did negative things, but sometimes it's better to expose your mistakes as an artist, because people relate to that and they grow from that.
No question.
So then it's like, that makes great art.
I'm still hung up on the fact that you've got 50-year-old groupies. That's kind of that's another show.
In Australia.
White women, 50-year-old groupies.
That's right.
Wow. There's a hip hop problem. on that record, man, Alicia Keys' vocal is got the perfect amount of like 2K, 3K. Did you do that so she could cut through?
Yeah, it's very
spectacular.
the song is very full in terms of what's there because of obviously that piano, that one instrument that we all, it's like we love the piano, but then the piano is the mid-range eater.
Right.
It takes up so much mid-range and it has so much harmonics. That's the one instrument that you really have to figure out where are you going to sit. And then this is a piano-driven song, right? So you have to really be careful about vocals and how you present them, and then to me that's the magic range for a female vocal is that right in that 2K,
But man,
3K.
when she comes in, it's like angel singing.
Yeah, it's
or
powerful.
something. What effects did you use on her vocal?
What did I use? It was I'm big on the 480. So 480A was probably the A side was probably a Hall verb. The B side, I normally always use an ambiance, and it may have been the large ambiance on that just to make it a little bit bigger. And then sometimes when I feel like the vocals aren't really sitting up, I'm a big person on the spreader, like doing the old school spreader. For the guys that don't really know what that is, it's like you do one side of a delay, the other side is off, the delay is off a little bit from this side. It's sort of trying to create this effect. And then what we do is whatever side the bigger delay is on, that gets the minus pitch, and whatever side the smaller delay is on, that gets the plus pitch. And then you like sort of send it out so that it spreads it out a little bit. So you're using delay and pitch, but now they have spreaders. You can just buy waves or something and put a spreader. But back in the day, we had to actually make a spreader. So it was like 2 delays, and then maybe I would use like the H3000 or something like that to do the pitch. Yeah.
Getting a little bit of a deep dive going here. When I have to mix a song like Empire, the first verse comes along. I've got my energy, everything set. I want my chorus to lift.
Right.
Well, that chorus didn't just lift, it went to the moon.
Yeah, it explodes.
But now people don't understand, you've got to bring that energy back down and dump you into the second verse and not make the second verse seem little. And I checked it, and you kept the same volume of everything as the first verse, still slid me back into the second verse. How did you do that? Is it something you can articulate? Or?
Yeah, for me, the thing that I study that does that the most is Nirvana. When I listen to the way that they constructed records, and this is with a lot of just what people would call, I don't know, grunge or whatever. I was very heavily into that scene. Not so much Nirvana. I was a big Mudhoney guy because that's just my nature. If everyone's on one thing, I run to the other thing, right? But I was big on Mudhoney. But it's from listening to those type of records where we start out and it's very soft and quiet, and the singer is on. And, it's all about dynamic range. So the singer is very soft and quiet, and then it gets super loud, and then it goes back to being soft and quiet. So for that, I wouldn't say that it was like from 0 to 100. It was maybe from like, it's still, we starting at like 30, then we take it to 100, and then we can come back to like 65. And that has to do, again, with arrangement. But I think one of the big things that brings us back is the keys that go dun, 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 and we come back down.
Yeah.
I was taught, I had great teachers when I went to school. I went to a very small school in Rockville, Maryland called Omega Recording Studios. And they taught everything about music. So the very first thing that they said is just the way that you breathe, the way that life is cyclical. Everything in life is cyclical, right? Music is cyclical. We have to go somewhere. There's tension and then there's release. All great melody has tension, release, tension, release. That's the whole thing about us as human beings. You breathe in and you breathe out.
Yeah.
That's life. So it's just trying to get that release back in. There has to be some type of sound, or what I call transition sounds, that bring you back. And in that song, it's the dun 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 when we go back down. And that to me, that's what brings us back into this verse. And the drums, once you get your drums sitting correctly, you can drop back and just have just drums riding, or drums and maybe something simple, and take the bass line out, and then that'll bring the person back down without totally taking them to square one.
And then you're reloaded. Ready to
exactly.
Go.
And part of the tension that I liked, what was that sound in the pre-chorus that sounds like a chugging guitar? Is it a guitar?
That's actually in the sample. It was something that was in the sample that was just used over and over again. You know, just a different part.
Where did that sample come from?
Oh, it was. I'm trying to
An
remember.
old obscure jazz sample.
No. It was a very popular R&B record, but I'm trying to remember exactly what record it was. But it was like a super popular R&B record. I want to say the Shy Lights. Maybe the Shy Lights.
When you're mixing a song with a sample, that's pretty difficult. Do you start?
Oh, yeah.
Do you start with the sample, or do you start with the drums themselves?
I
the
always
added
start with drums. I always start with drums. Always. To me, in hip hop music, that is the most important thing. What I will do, though, there's techniques that have developed over the years. I was sort of doing multi-band compression and EQing before multi-band compressors and EQs came out, because I was always dealing with dirty samples. You know, guys that were sitting at home, they were sampling old records that had all this hiss and stuff on it. So when I got a sample, I would automatically split it into, if it's a stereo sample, I split it into at least 3, different things. So that I had greater control. So this one would be like the
high,
bass
mid, low.
one, mid one, and then a high one, and then I'd find some blend, but it allows you to do things like compress this bass different than you're compressing the mids and the highs. And then there was a big time in hip hop where the filter style was kind of in, so it allowed me to mute these two, and then it's almost like I'm muting everything but the bass line. And it's all with manipulating something that was already there when you can't go back into that session and personally pull those things out. So.
The bridge in that song is like it's like a much like Beach. It could be just a song on its own.
That you have to credit to Alicia.
Really?
Yeah. That the way that she brought that across I thought was just so powerful for her, and she fit. It was just Alicia being from New York, being a New York girl.
Absolutely.
It was just one of those genius moments where the stars aligned and everything was just right. But I give her the credit on that. Like, of course, what was difficult for me was matching her piano to the sample piano and having it sound like it was done in the same room at the same time.
And tune too, right?
Yeah. The tuning on hers was way different than what was going. What you find is that when we're playing a record on a turntable, right, and a record was done at whatever, let's say it's in the tune, it's C sharp or whatever, right, and then we're speeding it up and slowing it down with the pitch on the turntable, so it may fall sometimes in between certain notes. So sometimes it's very hard to take the rest of the instruments and get them in tune with the song. So what I'll do is try to take the actual original sample and retune that, which now is so simple because you throw it in Ableton, you throw it in Melodyne, which is something else I really love, and you can just obviously just move it, and it's like, okay, this is so easy. But again, back in the day, which is 15 years ago, I would be sitting with either the H3000 was like my go-to thing with pitch. Just because it blew my mind that H3000 could actually sample and do pitch. So it was like, that was the original thing that I would use that allowed you to change pitch without changing the tempo.
So the issue with her piano was not individual notes, but the entire piano as a whole was
She was in tune.
Okay.
Like if she's sitting in her studio, the guy who tuned her piano did his job,
so that made it a little easier.
but it's actually playing against a sample that has been sped up and taken out of tune, and now I had to redirect what she was doing, so that it all fit together.
Got it.
Did you use on the drums? Did you use your distressor and your API?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Distressors to me are just. I was on DBX 160s heavy. Before the distressors, the DBX 160s were like my thing.
XTs?
The XTs, I love those on drums. And then when the distressor came out, the harmonics that I can get out of it and the overdrive that I can get out of it and the fact that I can kind of emulate every compressor with this one compressor is a big thing to me.
Well, it sounds to me like sometimes I hear you kind of tuning with the distressor.
Oh yeah.
Oh, you're doing that?
Yeah, the harmonics on that are incredible. The distressor, I just love it as a compressor, and it's very strong. And then that combined with the APIs, I think it's hard to describe sound sometimes, but these for me are very sweet and mid-rangey and distort well. SSLs are very punchy, and APIs are crunchy. They have this crunch punch, I guess you would call it, that when I was in school and I used to track drums in 3 different rooms, I was lucky enough to have a school that had a Neve, a SSL, and an API, and I could take tape into each one of those rooms and see what it sounded like. The APIs to me those 515s, I mean the 512s, I fell in love with as a preamp, and then the 550s and the 550Bs were just incredible EQs.
Another thing that I like about what you do is I'm very sensitive to phase, and I think that a lot of young engineers come along and don't understand that sometimes you can't EQ something the way you want it. Always check the phase, because it might be that you're fighting a phase issue.
Right.
I'm noticing that you do that too. What
I did was when I went to school, I tried to focus on things that I felt as though I was lacking in. So by the time I went to school, I had done plenty of hip hop sessions, right? Things like, R&B sessions, hip hop sessions. So I went in with the idea, like, I don't know anything about recording rock and roll. I want to know about amps, and I want to know about microphones, and also because as a hip hop guy, you're like, okay, you're recording directly out of a box, and you learn about only the amps that you have in your room.
Right.
So phase was another one of those things. It was like I wasn't good at hearing phase, so I concentrated on it, and I concentrated on, okay, let me see what this sounds like when I move this and I move this, and I would spend a lot of time.
Are you shifting the whole sample, or are you just hitting the button?
No,
both?
I shift.
Oh, so you're shifting.
Yeah,
Are you shifting in samples or milliseconds?
I shift in milliseconds.
Oh, okay.
And I actually look at the waveform, and I'm like, okay, let me get this to the best place where it sounds good. Because sometimes when you just perfectly align two kicks that aren't the same kick, or if you think about it, it could be I double mic the snare, and the time difference, there is going to be a difference in the actual waveform. Because people will look at it and say, okay, well, it's the same hit. Well, there's a difference in nature between, me being on this side and me being on this side. So it's going to be a little different. So I would check and just listen as I'm moving it. I think the Little Labs plugin is one of the best ones for doing that, because you don't always, when I push phase, and then it's just flipping it 180, right? So it's just like, okay, that may or may not work.
Right.
Sometimes it's not perfectly 180. Sometimes
Very
it's just,
seldom.
very seldomly.
Right.
Sometimes it's like, okay, I have to move. Now I got it in the right spot. You have to check that a lot when there's, for me personally, when there's, say, a kick or something already in a sample, and then the producer is layering 3, 4, 5 more kicks on top of that, just to make sure that everything is in phase. Because as you're saying, it's just like, it's not really an EQ thing. To get the strongest hit, you just put everything in phase, and it's like, okay, we play it all at the same time.
Some of the best folks in the business who have sat in that chair, and I think you're alluding to the same thing, you could know everything you want technically, but you need to trust your gut.
Yeah, the ear is the final thing. That's another great thing that I learned in school, was trust your ear. At the end of the day, you learn all this stuff so that you can master it, and so that you kind of don't have to think about it, so that it becomes natural. But the ear is the greatest thing.
That's the final arbiter.
Because I live in this world where some of my engineers, I want them to work in the real world.
Yeah.
So some of my guys become lab coat guys, where they're so, they're so into this technical thing. And I'm like, yes, that's what we are. We're very technical people. I'm not taking away from any of that.
Right.
But let's understand what we're doing. We're making music for people. So your end listener has no idea of what you recorded.
Doesn't have on a lab coat.
All they do is listen to the two speakers, and they go, I like it or I don't.
That's
it. That's who you're servicing.
Whenever I'm out and about, and I run into 50-year-old white women, they always ask me two things. They say, what is Guru's number, and how the hell do you EQ 808s? Save me from this 808 thing. It's like,
well, the biggest
every day I get 20 emails about 808s.
The biggest
Break it down, start to
misconception
finish.
about 808s is that they're all bass. And that's the easiest part of the 808.
You snuck some 10K in on an 808.
Yeah, you have to go
That's
into
not
these.
legal.
It is, because of this simple fact, is that you're not going to always hear the low end on a radio. If you're in a car, you're going to get it in a car, right? Because now car systems have gotten to the point where you do. But if you're listening on any other format like radio or anything else, you're not going to always hear 30.
Yeah.
You have to give it a little bit of distortion so that thing can creep up into like 120 and 140, and then even go further into your mid-range, and start to affect that, and then go to your top end and give it a little bit of air, so that it's like, now this thing is moving, and that to me, that's one of the biggest things. In each one of the machines, that I wish some of the guys now that just have a stock 808 sample that they downloaded off the internet actually had the chance to design their 808s using a real 808. Like I had my 808 modified too so that I can do pitch. I have another extra pitch wheel on my 808.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, but it's really, you know, that machine, when you're sitting with it and that's all you have, you really learn how to just adjust so much stuff. And instead of just taking a sample, the 808 is like I don't know, it's a weird machine, but it's something that we built our culture off of, and then now
It's the most recognizable.
yeah,
drum
now
sound.
now the it's in vogue to go back to like those early 80s because when guys talk about like trap music, to me it's early 80s Beastie Boys, and
That's right.
you know, it sounds like
That's
that.
exactly right.
Another question I get a lot that you do very well is having the low end live in harmony down there and just be happy together. And when people ask how do you do that, it's an unanswerable question because every song's different.
I will tell them this though, no two atoms can exist in the same space. So sometimes the client will walk in and they'll hear me and I'll make it a very small cue, but they'll hear me taking frequencies out of the bass, and they're like, "What are you doing?" And I'm like, "I'm making room for the kick,
There you go.
so that when these two come together, they're going to wrap around each other."
Yeah.
But if you just listen and solo my bass, sometimes it's like, "Well, why did you have a dip right here?" And I'm like, "Well, at this 110 is where my kick is really pronounced, so that's going to fill up that space, and then the bass is going to sort of wrap around it." If you just start, you know, like a lot of my guys do, they just start turning up frequencies. I want to hear more of this and more of this and more of this.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's like you're defeating the purpose.
Yep.
It's about combining all of this stuff and wrapping it around versus just, you know, if we're going to sit here and listen to a bass player just solo, then yeah, turn up
Sure.
the low end. But when that has to be with a band, you know, you have to make room for everything.